Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X at Movies TV Mad, on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to Saturday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. On this show, James Gunn says no Batman in Superman Legacy. Oh, well, get into it, and I will tell you how not all hope is lost in Batman actually being in Superman Legacy. James Gunn was asked if he tried to cancel the Batman 2. He says no. We'll get into that as well. And there's been an update from WB Games on their connection with James Gunn's DC Universe and how they'll be working together to build out games for the brand new universe, but not necessarily games to go with the movies. Very, very interesting. But first of all today, James Gunn was asked if Batman would be in Superman Legacy. He said no, because he isn't in the script. Let me ask you a question. If you were James Gunn and you were asked if Batman is going to be in Superman Legacy, even if Batman is in Superman Legacy, would you be telling us that Batman is in Superman Legacy? Would you be confirming it? No, I wouldn't be confirming it. We want some surprises, right? Now, look, I don't know if he's telling the truth and Batman isn't in Superman Legacy, but I don't think at this point, before there's been even a shoot, that, you will be confirming this. Now, the truth of the situation is officially that there hasn't been a Batman cast for DC Universe. In fact, there hasn't even been any auditions, any reports of any auditions. It could be secretly they've already chosen who their Batman's going to be. But Brave and the Bold, for example, which will be the first Batman movie foray into the Batman universe in DC Universe, doesn't have a script. It has a director in Andres Muschietti without a script. That situation is getting more curious and curious every day. So you could see why there most probably isn't going to be a Batman in Superman Legacy, but I'm not convinced totally that there won't be a Batman in Superman Legacy. It could be James's way of revealing who Batman's going to be in Superman Legacy, which would be a very interesting way of doing it. But no, I'm not convinced that Batman isn't in that movie. But right now, we don't know who Batman's going to be in DC Universe. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. Look, James Gunn has made himself available, very kindly made himself available on Threads to fans, answering most questions he gets. But there's some questions that he can't be totally honest about. And that's right, because I do want some surprises, and I don't want him to tell us everything. And James Gunn, I'm sure, has no intention of telling us everything. We know that he wants Supergirl to be very important in the Superman part of the DC Universe. Now, I believe he's going to build out the Superman family. Lois, Jimmy, Supergirl, Perry, etc. And I also believe he's going to build out the Bat family in DC Universe as well. So that's very, very exciting. Keeping on the subject of Batman, he was asked by another fan if he tried to cancel the Batman 2. He merely said no. Listen, if I was James Gunn, I wouldn't be happy when I was coming in to be running DC that there's a pre-existing Batman that I can't use. So I would assume that James Gunn attempted to have a conversation with Matt Reeves. We want your Batman, Rob Pattinson, to be our Batman. Matt would have said no, right? You can understand why Matt would have said no, but you can understand why James Gunn isn't exactly happy that there's a pre-existing Batman. So I think he probably did attempt to bring Rob Pattinson's Batman over to DC Universe and stop or try it and nicely ask if Matt would be happy to come over to DC Universe with his Batman. And obviously we know the answer to that. I'm very excited that the Batman universe from Matt Reeves exists. I'm happy we're getting a Batman 2. Can't wait for the Penguin series on Max this year. But you can understand why James Gunn may have attempted to thwart that universe and bring Rob Pattinson over to DC Universe. Now, that might be another reason why there hasn't been a Batman casting yet. Maybe there's still a small chance that Rob could cross over to DC Universe. Very, very unlikely, but we do live in curious times. There's some people who believe after the Batman 2, that will be the end of Reeves' universe. But money talks and bullshit walks. If the Batman 2 makes around the same it did last time, or even more, or climbs up to $1 billion, of course there's going to be another Batman movie from Matt Reeves, and his whole universe will continue. How long Matt Reeves plans on building out his Batman universe is anyone's guess. But of course, success brings longevity in any business. So yeah, no doubt that James Gunn would have come in and said, oh God, we've got a pre-existing Joker. We've got a pre-existing Batman. You know, I'd rather not have two Jokers and two Batmen in DC. But this is why they've created DC Elseworlds, so they can, temper that situation. But you can understand why James Gunn wouldn't have been happy about that. So not necessarily attempting to cancel the Batman 2, but at the very least, broaching the subject with Matt Reeves about bringing Robert Pattinson over to DC Universe. And I can understand why James would have attempted to do that, but I can also understand why Matt Reeves would have said, no, missus, that's not going to happen. I want to continue building out my universe. And, Matt Reeves is under David Zaslav's protection there in terms of that. It's made money. Zaslav's very happy with that first film. That universe will continue separately on DC Elseworlds. Now, WB Games has spoken, or the people working on DC Games has spoken out about having a close relationship with James Gunn, Peter Safran for the new DC Universe, but they don't want to rush out a game per movie. They don't want to attach a game with every movie, because that does bring a lot of pressure. It's a very, very challenging thing and a time-consuming thing to make games. It takes a long time. It takes many years to make a great game. And what they don't want to be doing is rushing out games and having subpar material. Although attaching games per movie is a very good marketing ploy, but it doesn't always make for great games. There's no question about that. We've already been told that, the games won't necessarily be connected to the universe. They're just going to make good games. Listen, we've been crying out for a Superman game for years. And, I think the fans will gobble it up. But it has to be a good game. And maybe they've looked at Superman Legacy and said, listen, we can't make a good game for this movie. Maybe this movie is more story-based. Maybe it's not all-out action like Man of Steel. So it's very difficult, to create a Superman game with those parameters. So they're going to take their time. So there is going to be a gaming structure as part of this DC universe, but not necessarily games that are going to be connected. I'm all right with that. But as I say, they've taken up a huge challenge in bringing out games. So it looks like we won't get games attached to movies, or maybe sometimes we'll get games attached to movies and sometimes we won't. Now, the person who's been attached to be working on the DC Universe gaming has said in the past, DC and the WB Games department haven't been aligned together. They haven't been communicating, and I think this is a good thing. James Gunn is trying to build out the ultimate DC universe, and to have live action, animation, and games in this big universe is a big money-making thing. It could become a big factor. If James Gunn is successful with what he's trying to do and what David Zaslav wants him to attempt to do, this could be a huge moneymaker. This could reinvigorate Warner Brothers, because make no mistake about it, all the major studios in Hollywood are in a lot of trouble. All the major streamers in Hollywood are in major trouble. Hollywood is sinking. They're not making the money domestically and they're not making the money internationally. How many films were successful? How many films got anywhere near $1 billion last year apart from Barbie and Oppenheimer? They keep on bragging about Barbieheimer. But what about the other films? How did it work out? Apart from Guardians, the MCU flopped last year. The DCEU, the final DCEU movies flopped last year as well. And there's the rest of the stuff that didn't do that well. You look at Disney, the other Disney stuff as well. They released an animated movie, it flopped. You know, Indiana Jones, it flopped as well. So it's not going well for the major studios. But this idea to have an integrated DC universe is a good idea. As I said yesterday as we were discussing Justice League, I can be frustrated with what happened with Zack and Henry and what they did and how they took that franchise away from me and all of us and how we didn't get to see the conclusion of that franchise. But I can also be excited about what James Gunn and Peter Safran are attempting to develop. I can also be critical. Sometimes I can be critical of Zack Snyder and some of the stuff he did. Doesn't mean I don't love Zack and what he did. Doesn't mean I don't love MOS, BVS and the Snyder Cut. But we've got to be balanced, and this is going to be a balanced place. This is not a place that is exclusively here for Zack, and it's not a place exclusively here for James Gunn. I'm just a DC fan giving you my opinions. My opinions are not the Bible, right? What I say isn't law. It's just my opinion. So I am looking forward to this upcoming Superman movie because, as I said a billion times before, I'm a Superman fan. Of course I'm fucking excited. He had a selfie with Sarah, who's playing the engineer. I think she'll be in Superman Legacy. I'm not sure if she's going to be in Creature Commandos, voicing Creature Commandos as well. Not sure about that. And one of DC Universe's, is it this Sarah or another Sarah, lost her dog. So I just want to say sorry to Sarah for her loss because I saw her post a lot of stuff on Instagram with her dog. Very, very sad. I mean, I take in stray cats. You do get attached to animals. And, you know, I just want to say that here on Movies TV Mad, our thoughts are with you. Yeah, any loss, because animals are like real people, you know, you do feel the loss. So sorry for her loss, because I do want to integrate this feel-good thing with DC Universe. I do want to support DC Universe. I want to judge the films and the cartoons and the games when we get them. I don't want to be this person who's frustrated with what happened with the Snyderverse and automatically hate on James Gunn and the rest of it. I'm excited because ultimately I'm a DC fan. I'm excited that we're getting a Superman movie, a Supergirl movie, a Swamp Thing movie. That's something that's very exciting. You know, there's an actor putting himself forward, and I forgot his name regrettably, who wants to play Booster Gold as well. That's exciting as well. So, you know, there's a lot of things happening in DC Universe, and it's very, very exciting. But to just try and go back to my original point on Batman, whether or not he's going to be in Superman Legacy yet, I think you've got to be careful with that because there's a lot of things going on we don't know about. He could wait till after the Batman 2 until he announces his Batman. And as I say, they don't have a script writer. They don't have a writer for Brave and the Bold. You know, we should talk about Brave and the Bold because there doesn't seem to be any development going on. It could be that they are actually waiting to see how Superman Legacy does, you know, with that. So they may not do anything with Brave and the Bold because if Superman Legacy, as we've said many times, if Superman Legacy fails, then that could be a big problem, a big problem, you know. So, you know, if Superman Legacy fails, there's not going to be any DC Universe. I mean, you can't be naive here. This film has to be successful for them to go on. So, for example, even though they've attached a writer to Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, I don't expect to see that film maybe not even going to production until after they find out if Superman Legacy has been successful. So we know that they're near the end of the casting process for Supergirl. That's probably because they want her to appear in Superman Legacy, first of all. Now, the Hollywood Reporter have actually echoed this. The Hollywood Reporter are very boldly, confidently saying that she will appear, Supergirl, in Superman Legacy. Take that with a pinch of salt. So I think what you're seeing here is that they're not really going to be going into production with the other movies until Superman Legacy is released. Now, this makes sense. Let's not forget the problems that came with the DCEU. Now, the DCEU was very brave. It put out Man of Steel. It went straight into production with BVS, Suicide Squad, Justice League. But that gave them a problem. Once things weren't working out commercially for them, they couldn't put the brakes on. So I think they're learning from the past kind of leadership's mistakes at WB with DC. So I think it's all about Superman Legacy. As James Gunn said, the only thing he's thinking about right now is Superman Legacy. Now, Creature Commandos will come out later this year. That's happening. When asked by a fan why that's the first one to come out, he said it's a good appetizer. And I think that was a great answer from James Gunn. I think having that animated series as an appetizer, and it could tease a few things from Superman Legacy. I think if you are excited with what James Gunn's doing with DC Universe, you definitely should be hyped for Creature Commandos. I'm hyped for Creature Commandos. I can't wait to see what happens with that movie as well. So, yeah, it's all about Superman Legacy. So don't expect to see other movies going to production. As I keep on saying, I could be wrong. It's okay to be wrong, but the way I'm sniffing it, and because there's no script for Brave and the Bold, I don't see them actually filming any other movie, even The Authority, until Superman Legacy comes out, or unless they can sniff that the movie is going to do well. But, they haven't even started shooting Superman Legacy. It's all about that film. That film has to be successful. If it's not, they won't go forward. And it's complicated for James Gunn if we go back talking to the rumours about him trying to cancel the Batman 2. I've explained to you what he probably tried to do, and I would have tried to do the same thing. But he's in the reality that possibly the Batman 2 makes more money than Superman Legacy. I'm starting to doubt that the Batman 2 will come out in 2025. Apparently start shooting the Batman 2 in August. We've also discussed that before. I do expect that film to be delayed. I can't see that film with the pace that Matt works at, because Matt's a real perfectionist. He takes his time. So I don't expect that film. I expect that film to be delayed. I don't expect the Batman 2 to be out in 2025. But we'll see. But just imagine that Batman 2 makes more money than Legacy. Joker Folie à Deux makes more money than Legacy. Look, it's DC. They're going to want all DC to do well. But James Gunn's focused on what he's doing at the end of the day. And as I said earlier, the Joker 2, the Batman 2, and all of that is an obstacle for James Gunn. And the reality is those films could do better in the market than Superman Legacy. That wouldn't be good. What we really want is Superman Legacy to do well, and I know that will upset other fans who don't want Superman Legacy to do well, because they believe if Superman Legacy flops, they'll go to Zack and they'll bring back his franchise. I mean, many people are fighting to get the Snyderverse of DC over to Netflix, which I think is the best idea. Again, I don't think it's something that James Gunn would want to happen, but I don't think that element, that side of things, is up to James Gunn. As I said earlier, WB and most of the big studios are debt-ridden. They're in big trouble. They underestimated their own market. This is why WB are constantly selling things to streaming, especially Netflix. So there's a lot of money in them doing that, passing the Snyderverse to Netflix and allowing them to make those movies if they think there's money in it and they don't have to invest most of that money in it. So that's an ongoing situation. So at this moment in time, it's an unrealistic situation, but by all means, keep fighting. But I don't think if James Gunn fails, they bring back Zack Snyder. I think they'll just make one-offs like the Batman franchise, like Todd Phillips, Joker franchise, Black Label franchise. I think they'll just do one-off DC things. And, they do need to clarify this Black Superman movie as well. Because it being in development, being in active development means jack shit. I did try and explain that to you the other day. But it's very important. Because as I said earlier, if Superman Legacy and DC Universe works as a whole, it will reinvigorate WB as a studio. It's very important. They're rebooting Harry Potter. I think they're making a mistake taking it exclusively over to Max, because those movies, if you put them together, probably made about at least around $4 to $6 billion or something like that. If you put those movies' box office together, to take that kind of box office away from theatres and to squeeze it on streaming is a very strange idea. But they're trying to put value on their streaming service. That's why. I think it's a very, very bad idea. If you ask me, what do I know? They work in the industry. They're the professionals. But the professionals in this industry at WB decided to make Justice League. Would you have done Justice League? No. Would I have done Justice League? No. So I do think sometimes, and it's about common sense, isn't it? It's not about me, an outsider, knowing more than the professionals that work in the industry. It's obvious that you don't do Justice League. That once you're stuck with Snyder, you've got to go with his vision and let him finish it and just at least break even financially. It was a weird thing to do. But yeah, there's been a lot of fails with DC over the year commercially. And Superman Legacy has to work. Now, Zaslav has put his faith in James Gunn. Is he right to put his faith in James Gunn? Is he wrong to put his faith in James Gunn? Some people say yes, some people say no. I genuinely think that Gunn is a talented guy. And when he speaks about what he's doing here, it sounds good. He's talking a good game, but it's about, at the end of the day, it's about the execution. But I like the idea of a Superman movie. I like the idea of a living, breathing DC universe in this first Superman movie. I like the idea of the Brave and the Bold title, the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. We're still to hear what's going on with Wonder Woman apart from Paradise Lost. But thus far, the things they've announced are interesting at the very least. But I'm writing a script for an MCU video. I want to talk about the MCU from the early days to what's happened now, because I think at the very least, Feige and what Marvel Studios did as starting off as an independent film studio was very, very pioneering. And I want to talk about James Gunn on that video as well. But I want to say, from the outside looking in, at the end of the day, with James Gunn, I think we can all say that from this moment, from what we've seen from James Gunn, he's very good at putting, utilising these groups of characters that are underestimated in these comic book universes. But there's no evidence out there that he can pull off a Superman film. But saying that, from James Gunn's point of view, you look at Dick Donner. There was no evidence before he made Superman that he could make a Superman movie. He made a horror movie, he made a couple of other movies. There was no evidence that Dick Donner could take on such a huge task. And think about it, it was a huge task. There was no CGI back then. They had to invent a lot of the stuff they did with the technology, with the VFX, and Donner pulled it off. It's still the most successful Superman film out there. Yes, Man of Steel made just under 700 million in today's money. But in terms of, if you translate the money for Superman the movie today, it's well over $1 billion. That film is very successful. I love Man of Steel. It's not about that. It's about being honest. So just because James Gunn hasn't made a film like Superman before, it doesn't mean he can't pull it off. But, there's no evidence either way. There's no evidence out there to say, oh, he's definitely going to succeed in building a franchise. And there's no evidence to say that he won't succeed building a franchise. It's a wait and see scenario. And me personally, I want to wait and see. I don't want to outright dismiss what Gunn's doing. But I think it's clear we're not going to have 4 to 6 DC movies a year. I think that's a good move, and I think all the efforts right now are going to go into Superman Legacy, and that's important. They're going to cast a Supergirl. There's nothing going on with Batman right now, as far as we know. But yeah, I think everything must go into Superman Legacy, and if that's a success, then they can start building out the rest of it. I mean, look, he's working on Peacemaker. Peacemaker's a safe project. It did really well on Max before. I think it's James Gunn's best work ever. I really enjoyed Peacemaker, so he can build out that. They can build out the Waller series. That doesn't hurt anything. Creature Commandos. These things can happen initially before the release of Superman Legacy. It will be interesting to see what happens with Mangold's, Swamp Thing, because nobody knows if he's going to work on his Star Wars movie first or this movie first. He's also doing another project as well. So I think it's going to be a long time until he starts work on Swamp Thing. So I think it's all about Superman Legacy. And it has to be all about Superman Legacy. Because, as I said earlier, this was the problem with the DCEU. They ran before they could walk. And they were putting all these, credit to them. They had confidence in their filmmakers and they were just doing stuff. They put out a huge slate. They were doing this, they were doing that. But commercially, they had problems. And in the end, WB were panic-stricken and went in on Justice League, which was a mistake. Because if you don't trust Snyder, you have to come out with him, as I said yesterday and many times before, and just announce we've had creative differences, we're starting again. But we do live in a very lazy era in entertainment, and they don't, they try and recycle things rather than, admit that they made a mistake. There's nothing wrong with admitting you were wrong. But we are here now. James Gunn is trying to build something out, but I think he's right to put all his efforts into Superman Legacy and see how that gets on. He's going to introduce some of the things he wants to put forward in his DC universe in Superman Legacy. This is why a lot of these characters will appear in Superman Legacy. But I think, it's all about that film. That film work. I think, as I say, I think that's right, because if you put all your efforts into Superman Legacy and it works and it makes near on $1 billion and it captures the imagination of the audience, then you can move forward, and people will be begging you to give them more, and people will be patient in seeing more. So I think the nearer we get to Superman Legacy, the more they'll know if the movie is going to work. The studio will see the movie, they'll make some decisions there. But I think going out and starting filming 6 or 7 movies as from now isn't the best of ideas, considering they have no idea if Legacy is going to succeed. So they've put their faith in James Gunn. He's the person, he's the guy building all this out. They're going to listen to him. They're going to listen to his experience. He learned a lot from Feige at the peak periods of the MCU. And, he's made like 4 good CBM movies. Now, the Suicide Squad, of course, didn't make money, but I still rate it as a very, very good CBM. But we just don't know, James Gunn wouldn't have been the first name I would have put out there to write and direct a Superman movie. So you just don't know. It's a very, very interesting situation. I had a very interesting kind of thing as a fan casting. I think Samuel L. Jackson would be a great Perry White, because there are rumours they're auditioning they're looking for an actor of colour to play Perry White. So if you're going to go down that way, who better than Sam Jackson? Now, Sam Jackson is no longer no spring chicken, but I think it's okay for Perry to be a little bit aged, a little bit old, right? I think that's cool, and I would just love listening to Samuel Jackson shouting, "Lane Kent!" I think it would really work. Comments down below. Let me know what you think of that fan casting. Samuel L. Jackson as Perry White. Would it work or wouldn't it work? So if they're going for a black actor for that role, why not go for the very best? There's still rumours that Kurt Russell will play Jor-El, but Gunn has denied those rumours. It's going to be very interesting who plays Jor-El, Lara and Perry. Those announcements are still to come, and I'm very excited to see who plays those iconic characters. This is what films should be. They should excite us. We shouldn't know if they're going to be successful or not. We shouldn't know too much about them. We should just anticipate them.